Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. G from Trusted Dental Care right here in Wiley. This morning, I'm going to talk to you about whitening. Why whitening? Because it's a holiday season. People want to show their beautiful smile, and what can be done to get them brighter and whiter for the New Year's. So this morning, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things: the in-office whitening slash what you can buy over the counter. Okay, that includes toothpaste, whitening toothpaste, and so I'm going to touch base on the difference between those two. So normally when we have teeth, some people have external stains, it's called extrinsic staining, which means it's outside of the tooth, and some of the cause of that could be your diet. If you're drinking a lot of red wines, and if you're a smoker, there's a lot of staining that can occur. If there's a poor hygiene, so a lot of those can accumulate on top of the enamel, which can make the tooth really darker than it actually is. Okay, so generally those are extrinsic staining, and for those really what we need is a mechanical removal of that staining, whether that be getting a cleaning first and getting polishing, and then quite frankly you can even do over-the-counter whitening. The over-the-counter whitening is pretty much a little abrasive in that we just kind of remove that extra staining. That's all that is. Okay, but let's say that if you really don't have staining, your teeth are not externally stained, then the whitening toothpaste is actually not recommended because it tends to be a little more abrasive, and so depending on how often you use it, so you can actually remove your enamel, and thinning over time, it can have detrimental effect, which means that it can thin your enamel to a point where your teeth can be very, very sensitive, and you can actually, some people, if they actually overuse it, you can start to see denting right through the enamel because it gets thinner and thinner. So I don't necessarily recommend the whitening toothpaste if you have no external staining. But if you have an obvious staining, external staining, like I said, if you're a wine drinker, a lot of red wine can definitely stain your teeth. Your diet, if you eat a lot of curry, any pigmentation, like any type of high rich colorful food, a lot of ethnic food, then that can definitely stain. Or black tea really stains, or green tea, actually those are pretty bad. Okay, those can actually do a lot of staining in your teeth. But again, the good news is they're external staining. So for external staining, really the approach is you can use any mechanical removal of that staining. That includes a toothpaste, a whitening toothpaste. So the whitening toothpaste, the components of the whitening toothpaste are pretty much a little more sand, a little more aggressive sand that's mechanically removes the stain. Okay. However, if it's internal, and so some teeth really have internal staining, which means that I can look teeth on the outside. I mean, there's not much staining on the outside, but the color is actually coming all the way from the inside, dentin from the pulp. Then in that kind of situation, you want a bleaching agent, so that actually works from the inside out. So all those staining that's accumulated throughout the dentin and the pulp, whatever, then you have to actually chemical reaction that breaks down the cause of the staining. Okay, so in that case, so you wanted to use in-office whitening. So hydrogen peroxide base, so the thing about hydrogen peroxide, it actually can go into the dentin, as far as the dentin, and break down all those extra carbon molecules to give it in other words, it can make it whiter. So I'll show you some example. We do a lot of whitening in office, and so you can kind of see this gentleman right here. So if you look at his teeth, he's got pretty nice teeth, but his teeth are not white enough. Okay, so let's say if I use the toothpaste option for him, it probably is not going to work because he doesn't really have external staining. As you can see, he's got pretty clean teeth. Okay, So in this situation, so what we decided to do was we decided to go with the in-office bleaching. So there's different, like I said, in the bleaching also have many options. So the in-office one is high concentration hydrogen peroxide. It can be light activated, and so you can kind of start to see the results right away, immediately. So if you see this patient right here, from here to there, within an hour and a half, he was like that, and then an hour and a half later, and he became this white. So he's just super happy. And so that's the beauty of the in-office whitening, is that one, you get instant gratification, two, it's very predictable, and three, it's supervised. Okay, so in other words, some of the disadvantages of this bleaching and so on is that you can get really gingival irritation, you can get some burns if you try to do it at home. And so if you do it in the office, so we pretty much protect that gingiva, that gum tissue, so that you don't get any burns and stuff. If you think about it, it's hydrogen peroxide, it can get irritation on your gum tissue. If I look at this other case right here, this one would require a combination of two things. One is that mechanical removal of the external staining. As you can see, he's got a lot of external staining. So we would address the external staining separately. We'll mechanically remove and clean. And then, so if you look at, like, for example, in the surface, once all this stuff is gone, then we can actually use internal, in other words, in office bleaching to go from the inside out. So in this case, we've done two. We've done the external removal followed by the internal bleaching. And so, they're both fantastic results. Both patients are super happy about the results. And I do highly recommend. Whitening is the gateway to any kind of cosmetic work. If you're considering you want to have some kind of cosmetic work for your mouth, for your smile, do it. It's one, it's not that expensive, and two, it just kind of gives you what's possible. You typically, like I said, we typically start with the whitening, and then, that just kind of gives you the option of to see what's possible, so and then we can go into more. There's more veneers, and there's more whatever other cosmetic needs that can be done. But again, like I said, in these two cases, two patients, you can see that's all this was done. So whitening, and that's it. There's no veneers, there's nothing else, but the results are fantastic. They're both very, very happy. Okay, what are the considerations when we do bleaching, or in office bleaching? Are one, we have to look into the patient's current oral hygiene. Okay, so in other words, I don't necessarily will go into whitening the teeth if there are other concerns. If the patient has cavities that needs to be taken care of, if the patient has gum disease that needs to be taken care of, obviously we have to start with getting the patient healthy first. Then we lead that patient into cosmetic, as in, like I said, the whitening is probably the first step into cosmetic dentistry, because like I said, it's really fairly inexpensive. You can get the results right away. So typically, like I said, when patients can go from here to there and just instantly, they love it. So you should definitely consider it. It's holiday season. I want you to just walk into 2023 with a smile that you deserve. If you have any questions, feel free. I will be posting this on our Instagram page. But again, you will be probably watching it from anywhere, everywhere. If you have questions specifically, I will answer them. I don't necessarily expect you to come to our office. I know some of our audience are in Europe and all over parts of the world. And so, but so depending on what's available in your area, let's say if you're in Europe, the whitening available, it won't be the same necessarily as here in the US. So each country is gonna have its own regulations as far as what products to use, but I'll try to answer some questions you may have. And thank you very much. Happy holidays. This is Dr. G, and you have a wonderful day.
Adios.
Adios.